And then when you're really going to be close to being executed, disappeared, done away with altogether, the remarkable thing happens that your life is saved by one of your torturers, Ali, who has fallen in love with you and wants to marry you. Could you talk us through this extraordinary happening?
When Ali saved me from the firing squad, you know, we were tied up to these wooden poles. It was me and 4 other people, 2 young women and 2 young men. And we were all in absolute shock. We were just looking around and we were realizing that we were going to get killed any minute, but we couldn't really react much to it. And then this car came speeding towards us and it stopped, and Ali got out of it and he gave a sheet of paper to the guards, and you know, they looked at it and they nodded. So he came and he untied me from the pole and he threw me in his car. I was petrified and I wanted to go back. And then as we drove away, we heard guns fire. I didn't see it, but I guessed that the people who were with me had died. And I felt like a traitor. And he told me that, well, you're a prisoner, you have no rights, I saved your life, and you owe your life to me, so I want you to marry me. And what went on in my head at the time was that, you know, I had read a lot of Jane Austen, and that was my culture. So as far as I knew, you married somebody when you loved them, and I had always in my mind, I had imagined somebody like Mr. Darcy, you know, a tall, handsome, good-looking young man, you know, just coming, you know, Prince Charming kind of thing. And I looked at this man and I was horrified. And then he said, if you don't agree, I will arrest your parents and my boyfriend Andre at the time, and I was arrest Andre. And I realized that this was serious because I had seen people's parents in the prison that had been arrested because of their children, who had done nothing. They were just simply there because of something their children had done for some reason. So I knew that this was reality. If Ali arrested my parents, everything that I had would have been destroyed. I wanted to go back home. If he arrested my parents, there wouldn't have been any home to go back to. So I said, okay, I'll do anything. I'll do anything you want me to do, fine. You know, yeah, of course, it took me a few days. I went back to the prison and I thought about it, and I really realized that I had no way out. That it didn't matter how I looked at it, that was it.
Ultimately, you have mixed feelings a bit about this person.
Absolutely. Not at the beginning. At the beginning, I absolutely hated him.
Right.
But then later, things changed slightly.
I'm curious because you have, yourself as a child, have already seen, not a child, as a teenager, yes, you've already seen inside the mind of a prisoner, and now you're living with, in effect, the mind of an interrogator torture. Did you have an understanding of what makes that kind of individual?
Oh,
did you get an understanding of who becomes the torturer and the interrogator?
Of course I do. With these people, I find that many of them were really mostly good people. People who believed in their religion, like Ali did. He believed in Islam. He had been a political prisoner himself at the time of the Shah. He had been tortured. I saw the lash marks on his back. He had suffered. And then Khomeini comes along and says, oh, this is the war between good and evil, and we are protecting Islam, and we are protecting our way of life. So what would people like Ali naturally do? They would join in to protect their way of life. So this is a large group of these interrogators who actually believed that they were good and the rest of the world was evil. And that because of that, they justified almost everything and anything, just like anybody else would in a warlike situation to do to others. So, you know, they saw the torture as a religious thing, you know, that it was okay, that it was justified because they were protecting God. But there was another group as well. There was another group in the prison, people who I honestly don't think they did this because they believed in anything. people who were just in there for some sort of a profit, to make more money or for power. But then there were people like Ali who at the end, I really had a feeling that he was just beginning to see that maybe there was a possibility that what was being done in the prison to 16-year-olds was just too much.
In yet another dramatic turn of events, Ali was assassinated as he and Marina stepped outside one night. When he saw his killer's gun, Ali threw himself on top of Marina to protect her from the bullet and saved her life for the second time.
Eventually, Ali is killed and you are finally freed of the prison. How did that feel, to be finally free of this nightmare?
I wasn't free from the nightmare. And I remained Evin's prisoner until I wrote the book. It was kind of like being free. I stepped out of the prison. It was a gray day. And there's just this one girl walking a few meters ahead of me, and she stopped at the highway. And I realized that the light keeps on changing, and she can cross the road, but she's not crossing the road. And every few seconds, she would turn around and look at the mountains, look at the prison. And I realized that she's having the same thoughts, in the sense that as I was walking, I was thinking of all the friends I had left behind. But then yet again, I was thinking of going home and how important that was for me, so I kept on going. But she really couldn't move. She was just stuck there. So I went up to her and I said, "Why aren't you crossing the road?" And she looked at me and she didn't say anything. So I took her hand and I said, "Let's go together." And we crossed the highway together. And then we separated, as we got there. And she went her way and I went mine. And my parents came and I hugged them and I couldn't let go. And we got in the car and we went home. And we got home and we sat around the dinner table that night. And my parents started talking about the weather. There was not even one mention of the prison. I didn't want that
this
night.
Is after 2 years.
After 2 years of I had been on, even if you had been on holiday, somebody would have said something about about that. But there was nothing. There was no mention. It was as if this time had been cut off from life, from memory, from everything. I just wanted them to acknowledge, to say, we understand that this was difficult, something, anything, but there was nothing there. And that was when I realized that home is not the same, because I am not the same. Now I have to deal with this situation, and my family wants me to put it behind me, so that's what I have to do. I have to put it behind me, and I have to move on.